I am once again going to go a little off topic. Oh, children are dismissed for Children's Church. If you're under the age of
40?
well, that leaves most of us in here.
Comic melody. Carol, come on. It's that hard anyway, right?
Bye, kids. Have fun. We'll miss you. He's so quiet. No. I had one of those weeks this week when I felt so strongly and confidently the hand of God on my shoulder and the Word of God in my ear to share with you today. And it came from an interesting source. Nancy and I went to see, last weekend, we saw the movie Les Miserables. And I think possibly the best movie I've ever seen in my life. And the performances are excellent. The music's not as good as the people that perform it on stage, but overall it was just a wonderful experience. And for some reason, it got me started thinking. Les Miserables was written in 1862 by Victor Hugo, and it's about the French Revolution in the 1700s. And the French Revolution occurred because there was such a dichotomy between the people of wealth and power in the country and the have-nots in the country. They lived in complete squalor, and the rich aristocrats and even the religious leaders lived in wealth and power. And believe it or not, the central theme of the story is the redeeming power of God in a life. Don't see that too much in movies or stage anymore, but it's fascinating to watch God at work in his miraculous way in the life of Jean Valjean, who's the lead in the movie. And while the central theme of this story is the redeeming power of God, it's focused on very little on the church. And there's a very good reason for that. I realized that when the government and the hierarchical system was overthrown, so was the religious power base in France. And the reason is because the religious power base in those days tended to go along with the government. They had religious leaders who were very wealthy and powerful and managed to put on blinders and not see the squalor that people were living in. And we have a hard time imagining today. I think I've told you before that the poorest place I've ever seen was called the Walled City in Tripoli, Libya. And this is a place where multiple families live in little huts with no doors and windows. They bring their animals inside during the night. The sewer system is the street. There's no facilities, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands. Of course, I haven't been there for years, but I can pretty much guarantee it still exists today in the same poverty. And I looked on that and I said, you know, I will never again consider myself poor in the United States of America. Lately, we're getting an increasing number of calls at the church from people looking for help. And increasingly, these calls are not from people who we would imagine are the poor that are always poor, as so many of us tend to see, which is kind of judgmental on our parts. But increasingly what these are good working class people who are coming up against an economy where they're losing jobs and they can't find another job. They're people who've worked all their lives and helped others. And I could tell you some amazing stories. People that have run food banks to help the poor and now are themselves looking for food. People with good hearts, good intentions, and just being decimated by the economy in this country. And you hear so much on the news about the fact that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And I have to be honest with you. I've been a business owner most of my life. I've built almost all the businesses that I've run from scratch. I've always said that if I needed a job, I could have a job in a couple of days. That it might not be what I wanted to do, it might not pay the money I would like to make, but I could get a job with a couple of days, even in the worst of times. I got to tell you, I don't believe that's true anymore. I think if I were 35 right now and did not have the skills that I used in construction and were looking for most jobs, the one good thing about, well, one of many good things about construction business is you can go out and make your own jobs and make your own work and at least make some money. Pretty hard to do that when you've been in a situation where you've worked for others like most people have. And you need a job working for somebody. Well, not only is nobody hiring, but most companies are laying off by the thousands. And there is suffering out there among fine people who just can't get a break. I think if we're honest with ourselves, most of us have become somewhat inured to this situation. I know that churches have. I know that there are people I talk to who've called 15 churches and no one's returned their call until I do. And I have a rule, and you should know this as your pastor, that I return every call. I talk to everybody. If I can, I go visit with them. And most of the time what I have to say is, we can't really do anything. We don't have anything to share. We're broke ourselves. We're struggling ourselves. We're a small church. Blah, blah, blah. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're just looking for food for their family. And it suddenly clicked, and I said something to Melody. I said, don't we have a pantry? Didn't we used to have a pantry? And she said, yeah, we have some food back there. I said, well, what good's it doing back there? Get a bag. And I called this lady and I said, come on in. And I loaded up a bag full of food and gave her some food. It wasn't much. We didn't have a lot back there, but I gave her what we could.